want a luxury SUV, maybe with 5 seats, maybe with 7. Well, you've got a lot of options on the marketplace. Manufacturers like BMW, Lexus, Mercedes will be happy to sell you one of many SUVs. But what if you want something your neighbor probably doesn't have? Well, meet the Genesis GV80 and the new 2025 model that has been refreshed. And in this video, we're taking you all over this car with my buddy Sophion behind the camera.
Hey, Tommy.
From Redline Reviews. So we've got a collab today. It's going to be a ton of fun. So let's start out with what they've done design-wise to the Genesis GV80. And Sophion, it's pretty minor, but some of the changes have a pretty big impact.
Yeah, so like one of the things you're going to notice right off the bat, Tommy, is the new front fascia. I especially love the new grille with the kind of like dual line texture that it has now.
Yeah, it's like a double mesh grille and gives it a more distinct, bold look. And then that's complemented by this lower front fascia, which has this almost imitation skid plate look.
Yeah, I think that really gives it, I guess, a tougher appearance, so even though this is not like an off-road style SUV. And in the sunlight, Tommy, the chrome that's all over the grille is really like reflecting hard off of this, so it looks really fancy.
It does, yeah, and this color is cool. So this is called Capri Blue. There's not a ton of bold colors available on the GV80, but this blue, along with a green in both gloss and matte finishes, are some of the standouts. So moving on, another new feature on this GV80, they've changed the emblem, although it is a very minor change, and I think it's going to be pretty imperceivable to most folks. But then the headlights are a big change. So we have these new micro LED designs across the length of the headlight, which gives it a more modern look. I think it looks pretty cool. And then coming along the side, we start to see some bigger changes. So we've got new wheels throughout. What do you think? You like the new wheel designs?
Yeah, so I think the wheels, I like how they're 22-inch diameters, but I actually think I prefer the pre-refresh wheels just because the finish that they put on it is kind of similar to what all other brands use.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. And a massive tire on these. So Michelin tire, which is a really quality OEM tire, a 22-inch wheel, but these are 265/40 R22, so a lot of rubber on this car. We've got the new monoblock brakes as well, painted in the silver finish, which looks good. And then throughout the Genesis, you're going to notice these double line streaks. So you see them here on the wheel, you see them on the headlights, you see them here on the side markers. That is one of the more iconic Genesis looks. I mean, in my opinion, this is the best looking vehicle in class. It looks better than the BMW X5. It looks better to me than the Mercedes GLE. It's just a very attractive, sporty design. And then coming along to the rear, massive C-pillar, which you'd think would give this vehicle huge blind spots. It doesn't seem to be that big of a problem, and it gives it kind of a sporty look. And there's an even sportier one coming, right?
Yeah, so there's a coupe version coming, which I think we're driving toward like this summer or something like that. Not today, but we'll be driving it later.
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of the sporty model. But out back here, that streak motive continues at the taillight here. GV80 badging, Genesis spelled large and proud across the rear end. And then there's some tweaks to the rear fascia too, right, Sophion?
Yeah, so they said basically that they've tweaked the rear bumper where they've gotten rid of the kind of exhaust tips at the back, which kind of look like the Genesis logo. Instead, it's now hidden. What do you think about that change, Tom?
Yeah, look, it used to be that when you built a luxury SUV, you wanted those quad tips to show the world, I got the V8. And now it's like, we want to love the planet, so we're going to hide the exhaust tips underneath. So at least they're not doing the fake thing that a lot of the German companies like Audi are doing. I think it looks pretty good. And then to pop the trunk, a lot of folks, including myself, initially reached down here below the bumper, but the popper is up here by the window. Push the button in, power lift gate, that's going to glide open, and then trunk space, 35-ish cubic feet with the seats up, 84 cubic feet with the seats down, and they are power folding, Sophion. So push a button, and those will glide down. That's quite nice. And there is a third row available.
Yeah, but you can only get the third row on one trim, the one notch below this trim, so this one deletes the third row, and the power fill feature is definitely a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, I wish you could get the base model with the third row. I think that would put this in a competitive advantage that some of its competition are maybe not at. But look, you really got to spend a lot of money if you want to get the seating for your whole family. So that's a little bit of a miss.
Right.
But let's do this. Let's cut to the front. We'll talk about the engines, and then we'll head inside.
Okay.
So Sophion, before you pop the hood,
Okay.
we got to talk about something I'm very jealous about. First of all, your calves are amazing.
Well, thanks, Tommy.
And my dad has a rule at TFL where we can't wear shorts on camera, but maybe it's because we don't have calves like you do. And here in Fort Worth, Texas, it's like 92 degrees.
It's pretty hot. It feels like summer here, and we're only in the beginning of May.
Brutal. All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about the engine. So what powers this vehicle?
Yeah, so this is the model that has the upgraded engine. And Genesis actually claims, Tommy, that 55% of customers last year chose the V6, which is surprising to me because the 4-cylinder they claim has the most power in the segment as standard. So the base engine is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder turbo, 300 horsepower. This has a 3.5-liter twin turbocharged direct injection V6, making 375 horsepower, 391 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed auto.
And you might notice that this is a longitudinally mounted engine because this is a rear-wheel drive based architecture. However, every GV80 does come standard with all-wheel drive.
Yeah, so they made that change in 2023 when they discontinued the 4-cylinder rear drive model, which I think was a good decision. I think people who buy a luxury SUV expect that. And I'm glad you pointed out the engine orientation because if you're comparing it to like an Acura MDX or a Lexus RX, those have a transversely mounted engine because they're front drive based, whereas this is a rear drive based platform.
Which should give it a more sporty experience, which we'll find out in a second. Now, total power, right, is good. It's not on the level of like an AMG product or an M product from BMW.
No, and they do have a more powerful version of this engine in the upcoming coupe, which is also supercharged to make like 409 horsepower in the G90 sedan. I don't think Genesis has confirmed the power for that vehicle, but I was kind of hoping they would put that engine in this car.
So the big downside with this particular powertrain is the fuel economy numbers. What are they?
Only rated at 1622, and that actually went down by 1 mpg versus last year, and that's because they had to, I guess, adjust the internals and the emissions to meet super ultra low emission standard. They wanted to keep the horsepower the same, so they said, okay, we'll just lower the fuel economy a little bit.
And a little bit of a miss, I think, is BMW, Lexus, I mean, all of the
Mercedes.
Yeah, key competitors of this vehicle are offered with the plug-in hybrid. GV80 is gas only, no mild hybrid, no anything, right, with electrification.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they don't even offer a full electric version of this car, although I feel like they have one in the works, but I think for them skipping hybrids, I think that's a mistake. I think that's what customers really want.
So we're gonna get on the road though and see what that horsepower feels like, but first, let's check out the interior.
Sure.
So Fionn, hopping into the interior of the GV80, and this is where we're going to see the majority of the changes, right?
Yeah, so the big change that you're going to notice right away is the new screen, 27 inches across, which is also one continuous screen. I have to say, it looks fantastic.
It really does. Now, we do have CarPlay, Android Auto, but there is a catch because for 2024, this is still a wired setup, but wireless is coming.
Yeah, they said wireless is going to come in an over-the-air update this summer. So if you're one of the few that are buying this car like now because they're heading to dealerships, you're going to have to deal with wired connection for a few more months.
Now here's a cool part about the screen. So it looks fine in Apple CarPlay, kind of traditional, but if we go to the native setup, now we can see the advantage of the 27-inch screen. So there's no divide between the infotainment side and the gauge cluster side. You've got one continuous flowing screen. We got some old dogs coming up on us. Look at these cuties. So cute. All right, easily distracted. But so I think it's a very modern look. Now, the tablet thing, in my opinion, is a little overdone, especially when it's like that big vertical thing that they kind of slap in the center of the car.
Right.
This, I think, is more elegant.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, this is kind of what I think Mercedes BMW is doing the same thing with their latest iDrive 8. I guess if you have the old GV80, the one thing you'll notice is like before the instrument panel was like its own little binnacle that was kind of into the dash, and it also had a 3D effect. They got rid of that, as you can see. This kind of reminds me of the GV60, but I think it looks great along with the new steering wheel. I love this new steering wheel, Tommy, because it doesn't look like an old man Buick anymore. It actually looks like a modern, sporty luxury car.
The old one was really frumpy. You know, it looked strange. This new one, though, I agree. It looks like something you'd want to drive through a canyon road. So first of all, cool two-tone look on this wheel. And then you've got silver accents across the middle portion, the stitched horn button. How's the horn?
Not bad.
It's okay, yeah. And then I do like the third spoke at the bottom. And then the center screen is configurable. So you have a couple of different layouts, and you also have a couple of different drive modes as well. So you can cycle through those in the middle, Sport, Eco, Comfort. And then this little guy is a driver attention monitor.
Yeah, so that's a new feature this year where it basically watches your face to make sure that you're paying attention, like you haven't dozed off when you're using, the driver assistant stuff. But you also got a big 12-inch head-up display. A lot of nice materials in here, Tommy. Like, look at the dash and the door panels. You have real stitching. You have these metal speaker covers for the Bang & Olufsen stereo, which I think they said it was 18 speakers.
Yeah, like 350 watts. Now, they actually changed the premium audio supplier for the GV80.
It used to be Lexicon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so.
Now it's Bang & Olufsen. These, by the way, are manufactured in Denmark, the speaker grills, which is a fun little tidbit. But yeah, I mean, a lot of manufacturers have been going to making these look like little bits of art. Really quite nice, I think, what Bang & Olufsen has done there. And then the materials across the dash are a little unusual. So we have kind of this geometric pattern on this particular interior color, which by far is the best interior color.
Yeah, so this is called ultramarine with the the smoke white. I just want to say sea salt. I think that's a Jeep thing, but smoke white with the ultramarine, which looks really good with the blue exterior color. Although if you have kids though, these white seats, I'd be nervous that they'd get stained.
Especially like it has white seat belts front and rear, and I do think that kids would smudge these up pretty quickly. Now, as we look up at the roof here, so we do have a bi-opening panoramic sunroof, one in the front, one in the rear, and then this also does open. So compared to some of its other competitor vehicles in the class, it's nice having an actual sunscreen that opens.
Yep.
That's quite good. And then as we look at some of the comfort convenience features, so the screen, usual Genesis kind of fare here. I find it pretty easy to use. Oh my gosh, this is going crazy. FM, AM, the usual radio settings here. XM, of course, function there. And then the audio system does sound really good. So that Bang & Olufsen thing, I think, was a really nice improvement. Amazon Music there. We've got our climate panel there. But we also have a new redesigned climate panel under here with dual zones up front and some cool features in here. So heated steering wheel. What's this little, like, perfume thing? So
they call it a mood curator, which it wafts, I guess, a scent into the interior. So there's 3 different levels. I love that feature. I loved it ever since I first tried it in like a German brand, but I don't really smell the smell that often.
Very faint.
It's very subtle, which I guess is a good thing if you don't like strong smells, but it just makes the interior of this car in general, to me, just smells expensive. I think that's important.
Yeah, you really get a sense of that Napa leather. We got the air vents throughout the middle here. Nice ambient lighting. I think that's quite good. Redesigned wireless charging tray.
Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of what's in the new Santa Fe, where it's kind of raised up a little bit, so it allows your phone to more reliably charge and stay cool when you're sitting on the wireless charger.
And then key, kind of the standard plastic key, but this car does now come equipped with digital key too, so you can use your phone as a key. Works with Apple devices. You can share a key via iMessage. Great feature.
Yeah, I think that's a really important feature as well. You also have this new fingerprint scanner, which I guess if you have that connected, you don't even have to bring your key to start the car or access some of the settings. It also will remember your settings. And then there's a new shifter here, which looks like it belongs in a jewelry store, but it doesn't rotate like in the GV60. But I think this shifter takes a little bit getting used to, because I think, Tommy, you were confusing it for this a couple times when you weren't looking.
Yeah, to be honest, I was going to change a menu up here, and I kept putting the car in neutral. That was very embarrassing. So you got to be a little careful of that. We've got a drive mode selectors here with the 360-degree parking cameras. I think that Genesis Hyundai Group does a really good job of integrating these 360 cameras. Color match too, which is very cool.
Yeah, no, it looks just as good as what you expect from the German brands. That's important.
And then we got a good sized cubby back here too. So bi-folding, open that up. We got a little tray. I'm gonna pull that out.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And then that goes really deep, but both of us were a little confused at first because we couldn't see how that comes out. But once you pull it out, it goes really deep. I mean, I think you and I are both in agreement. The only misses in here are the seats are very firm. So they are quilted leather, they feel good, but they're just not super comfy.
Yeah, they just need to use softer padding, and this is where, like, I just got out of a Lexus RX plug-in hybrid, and that car, the seats don't look as nice as this, but on a longer trip, they were just a lot more plush, and I was more comfortable in them.
Yeah, and then they've done a lot of work for noise, vibration, harshness too. So we've got double paned windows in this vehicle, and we also have my favorite feature of all time, the soft close doors.
Soft close.
Yeah. So look, you got a lot of features in this vehicle. but it does come at a price, which we'll talk about at the end. Let's check out the back seat.
Sure.
All right, so back seat of the GV80, it's pretty good, pretty decent legroom, 6 feet tall driving position, 6 feet tall skinny dude, and actually I fit all right. Rear seat is quite comfortable, and on this top trim Prestige, we also have, check that out, power folding and power sliding, or I should say reclining actually, second row. So that's pretty good, Sophion. And check this out too.
Power peasant blockers.
Yeah, the rear view shades are actually power actuated, which is a great feature. I mean, they put a lot of work into rear seat comfort, almost stuff you'd expect to see in a chauffeured vehicle. So we not only have a third zone back here, but ventilated, heated seats, all very configurable. You can even set the airflow to go to your feet, which is great. 2 USB-C ports, a 115 volt, 150 watt outlet back here. And then of course that quilting continues all the way in the back here, along with the sunroof. Fold this down. We do have a nice little storage cubby, which can pop open there. A couple of cup holders. So look, it's not a super spacious rear seat. It's adequate. The headroom for taller folks is adequate, but it's got a lot of tech. So if you want buttons and things to push, the rear seat of the GV80 has a ton of them. So if you're driving the GV80, full throttle, pretty good off the line, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't really have any turbo lag, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, the transmission's a little lazy. 8-speed, torque converter automatic, but the engine is really responsive, and it makes peak torque from like 1,300 RPM all the way up through 4,500 RPM. So it's not a super high revving engine, but it's always in the torque band.
Yeah, and that's good for kind of giving you that effortless feel of acceleration, and that's what people in the luxury space I think are looking for.
100%. Yeah, Rolls-Royce would call it adequate, but really you get a nice torquey push wherever you are in the RPM range. Now, from a driving standpoint, it's not as dynamic as something like a BMW X5.
No, and that's always been my benchmark, is the BMW X5 kind of just drives like a 5 Series. It's a little bit taller. Then there's also the Porsche Cayenne and the Macan, although the Macan's a little smaller. But really, I mean, in this space, like, do people really care about sporty driving dynamics as much? Like, they really care about refinement, quiet, luxury, and that's what this car does well.
Look, we are in Texas.
Yes.
There's a lot of Americans in Texas where the roads are just whoop for miles and miles and miles. And this ride, I mean, it's borderline floaty in that it's so softly sprung. And I kind of dig it, actually, because I've never been one to like buy an SUV and then want to go take it on a canyon road. All I do is sit in traffic on the way to Walmart, and the GV80 is perfect for that.
Yeah, and I think you got that right. The part where people just use these SUVs to just go to do their errands and such. Like, yes, BMW offers the X5M, but it rides horribly when you have it in its stiffest settings.
Really bad, yeah. And then if you want to talk about competition, you might as well just bolt the wheels to the chassis. But no, I think that this is a really comfortable, refined experience. Now, the road noise in here may sound a little elevated. We are on a terrible surface for this. That's part of it. Other part of it is 265 width tires. I mean, this is a ton of rubber on this car for what it is. Yeah, no, it's good for giving the car, like, I guess, additional grip. It also looks good with the wheels pushed out to the corners, but no, it definitely is a little noisier than I remember from like past models. But this road, as you can see, is not wonderful. What I do like about it though is like exiting some of these turns, you give it a squirt of throttle and you get the sensation you're being pushed instead of pulled. Yes. Because this is a rear-wheel drive base system. So unlike something like an Acura MDX, although that does have a pretty advanced all-wheel drive system, or like let's say a Lexus RX TX kind of thing, those feel very front-wheel drive based. Yes. Where this feels more like a rear-wheel drive sports car. Yeah, and it just needs a little bit sharper steering and stiffer suspension. Yeah. But again, the people who buy this kind of car don't care. Yeah, they're gonna really want it to just be luxury, quiet. And this is where I kind of have an issue with the seats because they are a little too firm for my taste. You're right. Yeah. And do we have massaging seats in this vehicle? You do. I don't. I get shafted. That's funny. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I do think you're right. You can definitely tell they benchmarked the Germans with the seats, right? They are very stiff, and I could just use a little bit of a squishier padding. The other thing about the seats, so I am 6 feet tall, not super tall, but not super short. And if I sit upright, like get my headrest in the right position, I'm pretty close to the ceiling. Yes. Right? And if I put the seat all the way down, I am all the way down. So really, to be very comfortable in this vehicle, I have to kind of recline a little bit more than I'd like. Yep. The seating position is too tall for taller drivers, in my opinion. It feels like you're sitting on top of it rather than in it. So I'd love like another couple inches of a drop on the seat. mean, you're what?
I'm
5'2", 6'3"?
I wish. So to put it into perspective, I was just driving before Tommy was shooting this, and I had the seat all the way down, and I couldn't see over the hood or the steering wheel.
And you're like 5'8".
Yes, I'm 5'7", so I was kind of just like, oh wow, this seat goes really low. But again, it's all about perspective here, because I guess you have a longer torso. So
I do, yeah. I maybe have a tall torso. Now, a lot of driver assistance technology in this vehicle. Some of it revamped for the 2025 model year. Obviously, adaptive cruise, lane centering. Adaptive cruise now, by the way, they say has machine learning, so it'll learn your preference habits, and it can learn if you like to accelerate quicker after a car merges out of the way, or depending on following distance, it'll learn those habits as well. So it's supposed to be a smart system. Lane centering works great, and then it's got blind spot monitoring and the usual parking gobbins that you come to expect. It isn't hands-free though.
No.
So you still have to be hands-on, aware. It isn't like a Super Cruise or Blue Cruise system. But yeah, I mean, it's a very usable system. I think it's quite good. I think it's definitely competitive. There's a lot really good about this car. I love the 12-inch heads-up display. Got really good information there. I think that the overall build quality feels really superb.
Yeah, not a single squeak and rattle in this car.
And I do like the towing capacity too. 6,000 pounds of towing capacity, which you kind of expect because this car weighs like 2.5 tons.
Yeah, she's a heavy girl.
She's a heavy girl. So we're on a flat piece of road here, Sophian. 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, no one around. Let's see what the 0 to 60 time is. You want to hold this guy and kind of film that? So full stop in 3, 2, 1, full throttle. A little bit of a brake torque. 40, 50, and 60. So that was 6.1.
Okay.
We'll do one more. I think that was in normal mode. We're going to try to get in sport mode here in a sec. That was comfort, and we'll see if we can get any more time out of it. You think acceleration is pretty good?
I think it's going to be adequate for most people. The sound is also refined, but I guess if you're looking for the drag race king, this is where the BMW is going to be much quicker.
Yeah, you're right about that. No, I mean and the Mercedes products as well, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you've got an AMG badge on, it's going to be quicker.
Yeah.
But you're also going to be paying a lot more. I mean, if you're comparing this vehicle to a Cayenne, I mean, you're really not going to get a Cayenne in this price point.
They're at least 100,000.
At least nowadays, yeah. And you also can't get a basic 2.5 liter. So you've driven the older 2.5 liter. Would you get the 4-cylinder or the V6?
You know, the 4-cylinder is really a lot of engine for most. It's all the engine most people are going to need. You buy the V6 because you want the extra features and the bragging rights. I think the 4-cylinder is probably, I'd say, like a second slower, or maybe a half a second slower.
All right, we got one more road here. Now we're in sport mode.
Okay.
I'm going to reset the meter. Are you ready, Sophian?
Yes.
I'm going to really brake torque it. 2,300 RPM. There's that launch. A little better. It's also very hot outside of Fort Worth, Texas. 6.2. You're going the wrong way. We may be getting some heat in those turbos. I think it's fine. It doesn't sound great, but it does what you need it to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I look, they did a great job with the overall packaging of this car. The NVH, noise vibration harshness, I think is really good. And I love that you just don't see a ton of them.
No.
You know, you see the Acuras and the Lexuses and the Beamers all over the place.
Right.
You just don't see a lot of the GV80s, which is a shame because A, they look the best. I'm just going to say that. They look the best of all of them.
They look like a Bentley.
And they're okay value. You know, like it used to be Hyundai compared to Toyota.
Right.
It was like so much for your money. Genesis compared to Lexus or Acura or Infiniti, like maybe more for your money, but it's not a screaming deal. So now they have to compete on design and performance, and they do for the most part. They're pretty good.
I would agree with that.
So overall, Genesis did a lot of little changes to the GV80 to elevate the experience, and I do like this car a lot, especially at the starting price of $57,000, right, Sophian?
Yeah, 57.7, which is the same as last year.
Yeah, pretty cool to see a new car that hasn't gotten that much more expensive. Destination is about $1,300, by the way. This one's a little bit pricier.
Yeah, the V6 is going to cost you, at least on paper, like an extra $18,000 more, but it does get a lot more equipment though. Yeah,
and this one as fully spec'd, we're looking at 81 and some change. So this is an expensive vehicle, right? And what Genesis is trying to do here is something a little interesting. They're trying to target not only like the upper end X5s, but even like the entry-level Lexus RXs. So they're really got a wide gamut of pricing on this vehicle. I think, you know, if you could find, the V6 is nice. I would probably just get the 2.5 4-cylinder. Find one in like the mid-60s territory. That's where I would want to be on this vehicle. Still get nice features like heated seats. You're gonna have to forego maybe like the second row power recline, but that's where I would be at this vehicle. I mean, the big downside, as Sofian mentioned, fuel economy just isn't very good, but overall, it's a good car.
Yeah.
Folks, if you want to check out Sofian, where do they go?
You can find me at Redline Reviews on YouTube and on Instagram and Facebook.
And if you want to see more of me, check out alltfl.com. If you want to see less of me, check out Auto Buyer's Guide with Alex Tykes. But as always, this has been Tommy. We'll see you in another video.